basic necessities, secure livelihoods, a lack of physical accessibility and social attitudes.
The Honorable Prime Minister of Fiji and President of COP23, the Honorable Josiah Porenggembain Marama, Excellency, President of the Republic of Nauru, Excellency Mr. Baron Wanga, Excellency the President of Wallis and Futuna, the Honorable Prime Minister of the Cook Islands, Honorable Prime Minister of Tuvalu, Honorable Prime Minister of Vanuatu, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister of Samoa, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished country delegates, distinguished representatives from development partners, regional organizations, civil society organizations, and the private sector and the media, ladies and gentlemen, Bulbinaka, good morning and a very warm welcome. Last night you were traditionally welcomed, and this morning I am honored and delighted to welcome you to the official session of the Second Climate Action Pacific Partnership Conference. The Climate Action Pacific Partnership, otherwise known as CAP, was initiated with the full recognition that achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement can only be possible through the collective engagement and commitment from all stakeholders, all agencies, all sectors, all communities, and all individuals. At this CAP conference, we have almost 300 stakeholders who I am sure are all eager to engage in sharing information, knowledge, and experiences. As you have seen, the theme for this year's conference is a Pacific Talanoa for greater resilience, urgency, and ambition. 2018 is the year of the Talanoa Dialogue, where the Talanoa process sets out to engage with all stakeholders, both parties and non-party stakeholders, and everyone is invited to share their experiences, their achievements, challenges, solutions, innovations, and visions aimed at inspiring and impelling countries to increase ambition urgently. Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the message coming from Pacific Island communities from both parties and non-party stakeholders is clear. It is imperative that we aim for the highest level of ambition of keeping global temperatures increased to within 1.5 degrees Celsius. We need to persistently sending out strong messages on the necessity to bend the alarming temperature trajectory we are currently on. There needs to be a swift shift in direction towards a pathway that will take us to a net zero emission world as soon as possible before the mid-century. This is vital for the survival of our small islands, communities in the Pacific, and other vulnerable regions around the world. We need to ensure that this message resonates in the Talanoa Dialogue. We can ensure this by making submissions and actively participating in the Talanoa Dialogue process, and I urge us all to do this. I would like to emphasize that your contributions in these conferences will be very important. You will be participating in the first Pacific Regional Talanoa Dialogue, where your stories and messages will be captured and fed into the Talanoa Dialogue. To set the scene today, we will listen to an array of experts from various sectors, sharing their experiences and insights, all with the underlying objective to showcase approaches and innovative technologies and solutions to increase ambition, strengthen resilience, and ensure an overall just and sustainable transition. You will then be engaging in the Talanoas, sharing your inspiring and impelling stories. This is what the Talanoa Dialogue aims to do, to bring together a diverse set of stakeholders to exchange experiences, knowledge, and ideas to learn and better understand one another. Everyone constructively contributes, everyone respectfully listens, and everyone openly engages to collectively identify solutions and to take action to address the problem at hand. In the May Talanoa sessions in Bonn this year, the Talanoa approach was seen to be highly successful and effective, especially in drawing out positive and constructive dialogue and exchanges. We in the Pacific should be very proud that this fabric of our culture is the basis for constructive engagement at the international stage. It is our hope that this Talanoa spirit of openness, respect, and inclusiveness will become a norm in national and international level discussions on climate change. While the Talanoa dialogue will end at COP24 in Poland, let us keep the spirit of Talanoa alive beyond this. Let me just put this into context. The climate champions were established under the Paris Agreement to accelerate climate action pre-2020. And the 1.5 report that was also presented to us this morning tells us why this is so important. Because we need to peak emission by 2020 and then reduce emission by half for the decades that follow. And of course, hopefully, we will come to net zero emission mid-century. And this is why this is so important. So again, we emphasize action and urgency. It's not only pre-2020, and we are just only 2 years from 2020, but it's post-2020 as well. And it's very, very critical, particularly for us, for our survival as well. First slide, please. Next slide, please. Again, as I've alluded to earlier, the Office of the Champions were established under the Paris Agreement. I think Decision 134, as stated in point 2 of the slide. And of course, let me assure all of us that this is not something that we just created on our own here in the Pacific. This is in line with the Paris Agreement, and of course, after Paris was the COP in Marrakesh, and that established the framework. It's called the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action. And one of the aims of the Champion's Office, under the guidance of the presidencies after Marrakesh, was to shift global climate action, not only global climate action, but shift in ideas, shift in policies, shift in technologies, shift in innovations, best practices to the global south. And we are thankful that through our partners, we have been able to bring that Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action into the Pacific through the Global Climate Action, through the Climate Action Pacific Partnership, and the first was last year, and of course, this is the second of this. And it's mainly to bring the non-parties particularly together, and of course, to support our governments in the implementation of our NDCs. We all know and understand that governments alone cannot achieve the Paris Agreement. We need the contribution of other stakeholders, and particularly the private sector. Next slide, please. That is the overview of the CAP. I will not bore you again into the detail, knowing that this is our second COP, CAP, sorry. The first was the one that we had in July 2018. And of course, out of that, we have been able to make some progress, and of course, in line with the UNFCCC, and hopefully, as alluded to earlier by previous speakers, out of this Talanoa that we will have, and out of these CAP events, we will feed into the processes already established under the Talanoa platform, the summary for policy makers, and of course in the reports that will come as we prepare for Katowice this year. Next slide, please. The thematic areas, Nicholas has already alluded to it. You will see on the left of the slide, those are the 7 thematics identified under the Marrakesh Partnership. Why those 7 thematic areas? It's because when we look at the science and we look at the emissions, about 80% of global emissions come from these sectors. It's on land use involving agriculture, forestry, oceans and coastal zones, water, human settlements, transport, energy, and of course, industry. But to the right, you will see that in the Climate Action Pacific Partnership, still in line with the Marrakesh Global Climate Action, thematic areas, but we have decided that we have about 10 thematic areas, and as listed. While still on natural systems, we have agriculture, forests, water, and oceans, which is very, very critical for us, particularly considering biodiversity as well. We have low emissions development and transforming technologies. We are hoping that we will learn more and know more of the transformative technologies that are coming into the region. I just mentioned in one of our recent COP presidency meetings that we in Fiji, we talk about hydro panels. But today in Fiji, just last week, we have installed the first two, we have been talking about solar panels, but we have installed the first two hydro panels in Fiji. This is to make water out of the atmospheric air that we have. So you will see that in Fiji, it's in Koreipita in the west, both in the west, and of course, Yabusania village as well. And hopefully, this technology will be moved into other areas in Fiji as well. Climate financing, that's very, very critical. We can talk a lot about plans and strategies, but without finance, we cannot do much. So financing is very, very critical for us. Most of this, you would know that we have, under the CAP events, we have put it under the cross-cutting issues. So that includes climate financing, gender and human rights, and climate change, and health and climate change, and the list goes on. I will not bore you into this, but let me just assure you that we have committees or groups that are involved in these thematic areas. Next slide, please. In terms of engagement, we have our CAP conference here, and we have the technical working groups that are working on the thematic areas. And of course, we have partnership days as well during pre-COP. And of course, we look for full support for climate action during COP23. And of course, linking up to the global climate action events. We also, this is an area, I know that under the presidency last year, we sought there was a special committee to look at how the subsidiary bodies and the constituted bodies within the United Nations framework for Convention on Climate Change can strengthen the linkages. And one of these very important one is the technical expert meetings. So the technical expert meetings, I've talked about the shift to the global south. It's not only limited now in Bonn. We are also moving the technical expert meetings to the regions. And we've just concluded with the Asia Pacific Climate Week in Singapore. And when we have meetings as such, the expert meetings are also coming into the regions so that they can have a better understanding of the region and of course listen to the stakeholders and get information on the technologies and the innovations that are taking place as well. And of course the presidency to continue to support the initiatives and actions, particularly in the Pacific Regional NDC Hub, as alluded to earlier by the Honorable Prime Minister of Fiji. And of course, we thank our partners again for their support. And of course, the just transition and decent work health. And just recently, yesterday, we had the Fiji Commerce and Employers Federation together with the Global Employers Council for Action Forum. They had a very successful meeting yesterday. I think this is the first to be held in the region. And of course, we are thankful to Morocco for handing over the baton to Fiji. And we hope that this will continue in the future presidencies because, as I've alluded to earlier, we need the private sector to help us in the implementation of the NDCs. And moving forward, hopefully, we will be able to finalize our action work program and, of course, firmly establish our CAP event with the thematics, as I've already alluded to earlier, in the various 10 groupings for continuity. And we hope that we will not finish with CAP once the Fijian presidency is over, but we hope that together with our partners, we will continue with this because our voice still needs to be heard in the UNFCCC process and other global meetings. We need to establish close linkages, particularly with the guidance of UNFCCC, and of course to the technical expert meetings, and of course with the regional climate meetings. We have concluded the African Climate Week. We have just concluded the Asia Pacific Climate Week, and coming up is the Caribbean Climate Week, which will be in Uruguay very shortly in a few weeks' time. So we hope that we will be able to bring our issues into this as well, and of course to continue to support the Climate Action Pacific Partnership events that will be organized with our partners at COP24 in Katowice. In conclusion, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, again, we encourage all of you to continue to participate in the CAP event, and we look forward to your support because we need to act together for climate action. Urgency, it is very, very critical for us. We need to come together and accelerate climate action, not only pre-2020, but beyond as well. Thank you for your attention.